I ended 2025 alone on the couch in tears, completely broken, so upset and sad. I had been to Italy. My partner is from there, and I took my children there for the first time to visit with him, to see the city, see where, when I go with him there, where we eat and the friends that he has there. I just wanted to introduce my kids to that world, and we went up into the mountains and had a great time on Lake Maggiore as well. In this time period, tragedy struck my partner's family. Now, the details of exactly what happened are not mine to share, but what I can share is what I've been navigating and my experience since that time. So, because of the circumstances around what happened, my boyfriend has not been able to come back to our home in Shanghai. And I pretty much knew immediately that he would not be able to come back to our home. So I'm sitting on the couch in tears alone. The apartment was empty. We had been sharing it, and I was facing a future full of questions that I couldn't answer. I had no timeline, no roadmap, no guarantee of anything. So I'm going to share a little bit about what happened to me, what's been happening to me since that time period. So this episode is just about that, about what happens when life rearranges itself without asking our permission. It's about grief and fresh air existing at the same time. It's about the beauty of Italy, and I'm learning embroidery and drinking really good wine and exploring versions of me that I haven't met yet, while also navigating deep, deep grief and pain. So I work in resilience. I teach anti-fragility. I help people navigate uncertainty for a living. I'm a therapist. So in December, when I was unable to do much of anything but feel lonely and defeated and genuinely, truly scared about how my future was going to unfold and what that would look like, would I be able to manage my relationship with my partner from a distance? Would we be able to stay together? Would I be able to stay in our home here that we were building together for the last 2.5 years? And here's the thing I know. The thing that I know professionally, intellectually, and in my bones from years and years of doing this work is that nothing can happen and no real decision can be made until you feel and process what is. Now, it is one thing for me to sit in my office and share with clients, you need to feel your feelings. Let's process that. Let me give you some tools to feel your grief. I'll sit with you and witness your pain and the things that you are navigating and the emotions that you feel about it. It is one thing for me to support my clients in doing that. And it's quite humbling. I'm a human too. I have life too. I have processes too. And so for me to also need to submit myself to the same processes and the same beliefs that I share with my clients, it's a good thing. It humbles me. It keeps me aware and sharp and on the cutting edge of truly how magnificent, and when I say magnificent, I mean big and painful and grandiose life can just be so overwhelming. And when you are navigating a crisis, whether it's the end of a marriage or it's the death of someone or it's the loss of a job or it's the realization that the things that you thought were true and real are not. You're beginning to question, maybe you're questioning your religion, or you're beginning to question spirituality, or like how you navigate that part of yourself. Maybe you're beginning to question, like, who is this person I married and why would I pick somebody like that? Like we face we have these moments where we have a choice. It's a fork in the road. And many of us are not really fully aware of that choice that we have, but we definitely have one. And the choice is, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to feel what is and let myself sit in the helplessness of that and maybe even a little bit of hopelessness of that. Or I can think that that's too vulnerable. I can think that that's too much. I can think I can't handle that. And I can go into some form of control. I can go into making quick decisions or feeling super anxious or getting all in my head and making plans and trying to figure out what's going to happen when I don't have nearly enough resources, information, or details to be able to make a decision. But that's when we try to manufacture and manipulate a future that we think we need or that we think we want in those moments to try and protect ourselves. But my experience has been in my life and in the lives of the people that I work with is when we choose that path, we end up creating more suffering, more pain, more chaos. We loop back into old patterns that don't serve us, that end up creating, like I said, more pain and chaos. So I knew that I had, as painful and hard as it was to come back from our trip alone and to be sitting alone in my apartment, having no idea, again, are we going to get to stay together? Is this relationship going to last? How soon do I have to move out of this place? What's going to happen? What about all of our stuff? What about the future? It was just so much and it was crashing down. But I knew I had to just let myself be in the unknown, to feel it, to sit in it, and not go into what I hope will happen, but what is right now in this moment. So that's what I did. I didn't launch into the new year, new me stuff that I normally do. I didn't set, I don't really do resolutions, but intentions. I didn't go into productivity. I didn't immediately try to find the silver lining or reframe the situation I didn't need to do any of those things. Which a lot of us are normally encouraged to do. I just cried. I grieved. I let myself not know. I let myself go slow. I let myself not be as productive in creating these videos and doing these things because I just needed that time. I needed that time to let it be. And of course, my mind was like, well, what about this? And what about this? And how are you going to get new clients? And you need to market. And, of course, my mind was scared and worried. But I knew I've just been through enough to know that if I didn't give myself a chance to just sit in the unknown and grieve and feel, and I don't mean like wallowing in it, and I don't mean like going into despair, because that's also my mind creating a story that isn't real. Our mind can create a story of, I'm going to be okay, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to get this, and I'm going to do, our mind can go into those stories and again, that's out of self-protection, right? But I didn't have enough information at the time to know what kind of decisions I needed to make. But our mind can also create a story of despair. My life is over. I'm gonna be homeless. I'm gonna have to live with a friend. My relationship is over. Like our brain can also create a story of despair. And again, that also is self-protection, that our brain is trying to create these stories so that we can predict a future so that we can feel safe. And I knew that both of those avenues, because I've been in this work so long, was just going to end up creating more suffering because I didn't have the information and I was bypassing emotion by going into a story in my mind. So was my mind trying to create those stories? Yeah, that's normal. If your brain is creating a story, it's normal, and it's an attempt to try and create safety. So it's not that we ever get to a place where our brain doesn't create stories, but we do get to a place where we recognize that's a story. The only thing that's real right now is that I don't know, and I'm sad, and I'm hurting, and the unknown is challenging, and it feels helpless and hopeless. And even though I personally didn't experience a loss, people that I love greatly experienced a loss, and I didn't know how this was going to play out or what exactly was going to happen. I think there is a version of the resilience conversation that's actually harmful. The version that says, get back up, don't wallow, find the lesson. The version that skips this step. It skips the step where you actually feel what happened to you without creating a story, and you cannot bypass this step and come out whole on the other side. And I know that, so I've let myself do it. You can delay it, but you can never bypass it. Meaning, if you do get caught up in a story and let that story play out, think of a time when you've done that where you have manipulated a situation to keep a boyfriend or a husband around when you knew they weren't really great for you, but you were scared to not have somebody, or you were scared of what would happen if the relationship ended. And so you had this story about how it had to work and you did all these things, but then it ends up falling apart in the end anyway. And it's even more painful the longer it goes. By the way, I'm speaking, I was in a 20-year marriage where this was happening. So if you want to go back to my channel, I talk all about this. So I'm speaking from experience here. I'm speaking from lived pain that I put myself through. And I'm not taking responsibility for my ex's choices and decisions. That's his to deal with. That's his karma to face. But I also made choices. I made choices to stay in a fantasy in my mind. I made choices to follow stories in my head rather than looking at reality and living life and facing and making choices based on the reality that I was facing in real time. Right. So after you have bought and earned that lesson, earned and bought, whichever one comes first, then I've learned, as hard as this is, I just have to sit here. And I don't know if everything's going to be okay. And I'm not going to let myself bypass this phase. And I don't know how long this phase is going to last. And that's hard. I didn't know if I was going to lose income because I wasn't able to create these videos and market and sell product, get new clients, that kind of thing. I didn't know. But what I did know is if I don't let myself do this, I will have to do this one day down the line because it's part of the human experience, and emotion doesn't just disappear over time. It just sits there and waits for us to process. And the longer I wait, the worse I'm going to feel. So I might as well just take the time now to be here and be not okay and not know and cry when I need to cry and be a little bit messy and vulnerable. So that's what I did. And interestingly, initially, I've recently been doing lots and lots of work around nervous system and understanding the nervous system and recalibrating the nervous system. I'm a trauma specialist, so I've really looked at the first part of my career was very much cognitively focused and cognitively understanding trauma and how it impacts our cognition and our behaviors. But the last year, 2 years, I've really focused on the nervous system and the body and how trauma impacts the nervous system and the body. So I was able to pretty immediately recognize that my nervous system, being home alone, I've never been I actually enjoy being alone. I'm pretty much an introvert. I need a lot of alone time. I enjoy that I work alone most of the time. I mean, I'm with clients, but I don't have like a lot of coworkers that I manage and work with, and I prefer that. I'm kind of a lone wolf. But this was different, to live in a space completely alone, to not have that connection at night, to not have somebody coming home to cook dinner with and be, just like the vacancy of suddenly being completely alone in my home. My youngest son is still in high school, but I share time with his father. And so when he's at his father's house, it's just me and in this place. And most of the time I really love that, but now I'm coming in, but I do, what I'm saying is I just immediately recognized that my nervous system was not settling because of the vacancy of a person that I partner with, that I love, not being here. And so the first several weeks were me just trying to recreate a sense of normalcy and comfort for myself around being completely alone. So I did experience this feeling when my ex first moved out. But my children were both smaller and both home. I mean, I had one in high school and one in middle school, and they were there a lot. One of them at least was always there. And so while I did experience this kind of vacancy of the lack of partnership, so a lot of you who have had a marriage end or something like that know this feeling. But this was different for me just because I'm in a different stage of life. And one of my kids he's in university, and the other one is in high school, but he's out with his friends, or he's just not really hardly ever here. And then on the days that he's with his dad, he's, there's nobody coming in the door at any point in time in the day. And that was really, really challenging, even for me as an introvert who loves alone time, to suddenly go to this vast, vacant space of, and I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm a recovering codependent. So I could just really, really feel within my nervous system like I don't have anything to ground to. And I didn't even know that I had grounded so much to my partner. We have a very healthy relationship. It's not a codependent relationship, but I still, in my nervous system, still settled with his presence. And so that emptiness, that vacancy was something that I noticed right away. And then I had to kind of spend several weeks, it took me several weeks to get my nervous system settled back down. So if you're going through something like the death of someone or the loss of your marriage or your partnership, or maybe you're empty nesting and you're suddenly you're feeling that kind of void, that vacancy, and it's very unsettling. I want you to know, first of all, it's normal. We're mammals. We live in connection. We are designed to be in a pack. To even those of us who are introverts, we still have to have a level of connections by design of who we are as mammals. So I just, I would take hot baths because the warm water on my body felt comforting. I put an extra blanket on my bed to, I could have bought like a weighted blanket, but the extra blanket on the bed seemed to help. It was winter time. It was December when I started going, or January when I started going through this. So, the extra blanket on the bed helped. I have some really good girlfriends, thankfully, and they kind of knew what I was walking through. So they were able to come in and really, um, we had more dinners together, more coffees together, go on walks, um, just more time together. And they, without asking questions, we didn't even have to talk about anything significant. We could just shop and look at pretty things. But it was just about, um, needing to recalibrate. And what I really didn't expect is that I came to love it. Again, it was not immediate. There was some resistance involved. There was still a lot of grief, a lot of tears coming up. But slowly over the weeks and the months that followed, a new version of me started to emerge. And it turns out I really like her and I'm really enjoying this. I'm still getting to know myself in this space. Um, but there's versions of me that I'm seeing that I couldn't have seen if somebody else was in my space all the time. So my new rhythms and my preferences are shaping in a way that I couldn't have before. And another really great silver lining is that my youngest son, he's a junior in high school, and I have a year and a half left with him here in our home, in my home. And so when he's here, it's just me and him, and I'm able to really see him and connect with him and be present with him. And I feel like I was doing that before. I guess we'd have to ask him, but I do feel like I was doing that before, but it's just different now. When it's just me alone, and then when he's here, I'm not focused on anything else. I can just focus on him and be with him. And so I've really enjoyed that time and savored that time because I know, having had one that's already left, what it's like once he's gone, and that I'll miss this time. So I'm really grateful for the time that I have with him. I started embroidering again. Like I had kind of picked it up a little bit before, but then I quit. But then I was like, you know what? I have this time. Instead of just scrolling, I want to create. So I began to do embroidery, and there's something about needlework, the slowness of it, the deciding which color to stitch, learning new stitches, the tension in the string. You can't rush it. It's just something that was very calming and settling for me. I also started thrifting again with real intention, not just browsing, but finding things that really help me feel alive. There's not a lot of places to thrift here in China, but I've been able to find a charity shop that I just really love, and I walk there and I'm able to take my time and dig through things and find things. And when I go visit my boyfriend in Italy, of course, I'm thrilled to be at the thrift shops in Italy, and I've just found so many cool pieces. And again, just connecting with a version of me that I'm really intentionally focusing on and helping and supporting, so that I can feel love from myself during a time that's also really challenging and hard. And that's really what this episode I want to kind of bring home is that you are navigating something challenging and hard, and you can focus on beautiful things and curate a version of yourself that you haven't met yet. And those two realities are not mutually exclusive. They can coexist together. Um, they, I don't like the word should. I'm not going to use should work together. That's not it at all. It's more they can. And it is possible for you and for me to feel uncertain, to feel unknown, to feel scared, to feel worried, to feel, um, I don't even have a word to describe the feeling of I don't have any idea what my life will look like in a year and a half. Less than that now, in about 14 months when my son graduates high school. I have I don't know what country I'm going to be living in. I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. I don't even know what country I'm going to be living in, much less what kind of house, I have a general idea of what job I'm going to have because my job is online, but I don't know. I just don't have any idea. Will I move home? Will I move to Italy? I think that's probably where it's going to go. Will I stay here in China? I just don't know. And there is some excitement in that, but there's a lot of fear. I'm not 20 years old, right? I'm knocking on the door of 50, and there's something about that this season of life where you're like rounding the corner into your final years, the last half of your life, that it is exciting, but not the kind of exciting when you're 20 and the world is in front of you, your life is in front of you, right? Like I have to be smart here. I have to plan for my future. I have to create community for myself. Anyway, that's a whole other episode. But I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, and that can be really challenging. And because of the circumstances, I've been flying to freaking Italy. Come on. So 3 times in the last I'm about to leave for my 3rd trip in the last 4 months. Um, I am getting to explore this country and the food and the wine and the people, and I really, really love those experiences. So while I'm there, maybe I'm crying and sad and upset because of the things that my boyfriend and I are having to think about and process and navigate. I'm also taking in Italy. So I want to talk about when we experience something really painful and hard, tragedy, loss, we understand how fragile life is and how little we actually have to control, and how there's no guaranteed amount of time with the people that we love or the people in our lives, and how the plan is always provisional. I've watched someone I love navigate real loss, and what I've taken from witnessing that is a kind of urgency that feels less like panic and more like clarity. It's like actually helped me become more clear about how do I want to spend my time right now? What do I actually want my life to look like? These are not new questions, but grief has a way of stripping away the noise around them, of making them immediate in a way that ordinary life just doesn't. So, like I said, in a year and a half, my youngest will leave for wherever comes next. And for the first time in my adult life, truly for the first time, because I was with my ex since high school, I get to build whatever I want from the ground up with no one else's timeline, no one else's geography, just what do I actually want? But I don't know exactly what that's going to look like. I just know that I'm beginning to meet this version of myself. If I didn't take the time to let myself just feel what is right now, if I didn't take the time to just be in this unknown, then I wouldn't be able to cultivate this version of myself that I haven't met yet, that I don't know. She's much more creative. She's much more expressive. She's much more um, curious in new things and new experiences and new people and the beauty that's around her. But if I didn't let myself be in this unknown and explore, then and I had a story in my head about well, I just need to do what I need to do, and we have to be together, and I am, like, I need to make this relationship work, and then I would be making decisions right now based on the story, and I would be missing this opportunity to see and find a new version of me. It's actually not a new version of me, it's unearthed pieces of me who've been buried. Because, like I said, I started dating my ex in high school. We got married immediately, had children early and young, and I don't regret any of that because I am me because of those experiences. But there was a lot of suffering and a lot of heartache and pain and following a story and timeline of my culture, of my religion, of expectation, where me, the true me, was buried and not allowed to emerge. And since that marriage ended, and I have been on a journey for the last 6 years of finding me, of course, I've come more and more alive, but this specific experience has given me some space and because there's some grief and pain and uncertainty involved, it just has allowed me to unearth and access pieces of me that I just wouldn't have known how to unearth and access without this pain and without this suffering. And so whatever you're going through, whatever hardship you're facing, again, if it's the loss of someone or the loss of a marriage, this is an opportunity if you're willing to not know, if you're willing to feel pain but also just be present and open and alive and curious, versions of you who've been buried get to unearth themselves and come up and find connection within this world and within yourself and then within the people around you. And it can be a really beautiful experience. So I'm still learning to hold all of this. I'm still learning how to know that there's a story happening in my head, but to choose not to engage with it, to choose to stay here where it's messy and I don't know, but it's also powerful and beautiful and cool. And I get to have these experiences again, for me right now, when I'm traveling to Italy, that I wouldn't have, it's a new thing. So I want to say something about my relationship and what distance has done, because I think it's different from what most people expect. A lot of people assume that distance is hard on love. I did, and that's why I thought my relationship might be over. And it is hard. Like, the jet lag is really hard. The logistics, the time differences. We're on really different time zones and trying to just manage when we can talk and when we connect. But here's what I didn't expect: that the distance is clarifying. And you find out very quickly what someone is made of when things get hard. Not like a short-term crisis, but when there is a sustained hard where we don't know how things are going to pan out. Months of showing up for each other, like I said, across time zones and logistics that are just challenging. Distance doesn't test love, it tests character. And sometimes the test results are surprising. The reunions that I have, it's like we are in the beginning stages of our relationship and falling in love all over again, because we are choosing each other freely, and we're both willing to stay in the I don't know, and let's just see what happens. Right now, it makes sense and it feels good and right and effective for us to choose each other, so we are. And so each time we come back together, it's this reunion that just is so, um, I just will never not be grateful for this relationship and what it has brought me, and what it's shown me about what love can really be, and what, more than love, what partnership can really be when you're with somebody who is just with you because they want to be and because they feel supported and loved and partnered with, and I'm with them because I want to be. and I feel supported and partnered and loved, and there's no other strings attached other than that, um, is a really healing, powerfully healing experience that I can't say enough how grateful I am. Um, and it has taken some work to be able to get to a place where I can exist, or the work I needed to do in myself to be able to exist in that kind of partnership, and also the kind of work that my boyfriend had to do to be able to exist in that kind of partnership has been just so incredible. So maybe more on that later because I'm still navigating the nuances of that. Also, the Italian culture has, and again, this is probably, I'll go into more details about this in a different episode, but just nothing matters to them outside of relationship. Relationship is always first. So if you're working hard on something and somebody stops by your house or by your desk, you stop and have a coffee and talk. Like, it doesn't matter when the deadline is, it doesn't matter what's happening. Like, y- nothing is more important than connecting with people and being in a relationship with them. And that has been such a mind fuck for me, but in the best way. And it has taught me how to slow down and how to get out of my head and get out of my deadlines and get out of the tension and just be with people and be with myself. And so that has again brought these versions of me, this introvert me who typically likes to be alone and is very cognitive and results driven and very yeah, cognitive and results driven, to get to a place where I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's go take a walk. Let's have a coffee. Let's go get a drink. Like, the work can wait. And that has just been, the Italian culture has so much to teach us about that. And honestly, Latin cultures as well. So each of these trips to Italy have just been, like I said, just so magical, and thrifting and getting to have dinners with his friends. And like I said, they're connecting, and it's the Italian food and the wine and the cheese that just melts in your mouth, and it's just all of it, and sitting outside the vineyards of the wine you're drinking. It has allowed me to have the silver lining and appreciate life, while also sitting in the hard. And what I've learned over the last few months is how to hold both. So I understand if you're not able to go to Italy, but I want you to consider, like, how, what are the silver lining? What are the things that you can appreciate? Whether it is picking the right mug for your morning coffee or tea and just holding that mug and loving it and appreciating it. Maybe you need to go to a thrift store and pick out some new beautiful cups, plates, and saucers to have your morning coffee with. Maybe it is pick up the phone and call people and set up dates, coffee dates or dinners or walks in the neighborhood with people when you wouldn't normally do that. It's just connecting with people, connecting with yourself, picking up a craft, picking up embroidery or crochet, or what's the cross stitch, finding something that doesn't cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to cost money. It doesn't have to require you to travel to a different country, but how can you bring beauty into your life? Maybe it is going to, in the DFW area or in Texas, like Central Market, and pick out a nice bottle of wine that's not super expensive, but is, and just savoring it, enjoy it. Like, you can bring the elements and essence of what I'm talking about into your life, even though you're going through something hard and you're grieving. And I want you to know that you can curate and cultivate a version of yourself in this painful season and the unknown, while it's unresolved. Our temptation is to think, no, I just need to get through this. I need to wait till I have a new job, or I need to wait till I'm not so sad about my partner or my marriage ending, or I need to wait till my kids are in a better place, or whatever it is. I understand that temptation, but you're missing an opportunity in that. On several levels. On one, there's just something about being in this really vulnerable, messy space of grief and pain, and choosing to self-explore and self-express and be in creativity that's tender. And it accesses a part of you that we struggled. I don't know how to access except when I'm in a hard season. Um, so you're missing an opportunity to access this deeper part of you that's sort of, like I said, it's hard to access or maybe even impossible to access when you're not in a hard season, in combination with when we get into creativity and the expression of creativity and connection with people and looking for beautiful things and savoring beautiful experiences, we refill the reserves a little bit so that our suffering doesn't become so dry and so the deprivation doesn't become so completely unbearable. I don't want to say it's going to make your pain easier, but it gives you enough sustainability to manage the painful moments that you're in when you allow yourself to savor and get into creativity and connection alongside the pain. I call this holding the duality, holding both, because the honest truth of the last several months is there has been extreme grief. But there's also Italian fresh air and real food and a delicious wine and a getting to know my partner in ways that have wrecked me feel more alive. And I'm finding this version of myself and the expression of her, even though I don't know what next year is going to look like. They're sitting in the vineyard drinking wine, thinking, could I build a life here? And then there are other things happening, like the dismantling of this home that I've built with my partner and selling all of my things because I can't stay here. The logistics of the way things are set up, I will not be able to stay here when he's not here. And so that's very unsettling and unearthing. So just navigating grief over here and joy over there. An older version of me would have needed to keep all this stuff completely separate. There's grief, and then there's joy, and then there's fear, and then there's hope. And I'm not even going to think about the uncertainty because I can't handle that. I have to wait till I have information, and I'm constantly searching for information. That version of me is exhausting to be. And so what I'm practicing now, and I mean practicing because what I'm telling you are things that I'm learning in real time. I mean, they're things that I've cognitively known, but now I'm challenged to live them out, is that all of this is coexisting together. And I can tell you it is 100 times easier. I don't want to say it's easy. I'm not telling you it's easy. Your life is not easy. Your pain is not easy. Your grief is not easy. But it is easier when you can let yourself be in this messy middle without having to curate and create stories and boxes and keep everything contained and feel like you're in control, and not let yourself engage in any hope or joy or laughter or pleasure because you don't feel like you deserve it, or that means you're not controlling something if you get into any of that. That is putting suffering on top of the suffering you're already experiencing. That is putting more pain and suffering. And that's why it feels so like you just want to run away. Maybe you want to die. Maybe you think I can't even, then you start feeling anxiety. You start having depression. You are having chest pains and heart palpitations and autoimmune disorders. And like our body cannot sustain the compartmentalization and the refusal to engage in ourselves while we're experiencing pain and suffering. Our bodies can't do it. So that's why pathology begins to surface. That's why autoimmune disorders and heartburn and all the things that your body, because it can't sustain the pressure for so long. It wasn't designed to. So what I'm experiencing in this season is letting myself cry when I need to cry and grieve and be scared and not know, but trust myself while also enjoying the beauty of what I'm experiencing in Italy and exploring new places here in Shanghai and connecting with friendships. I'm finding this beautiful part of me, and I'm not anxious. I'm not depressed. I'm not. I can say I have moments of feeling overwhelmed, but I'm not living life from it. My nervous system, I'm able to regulate it consistently. And so I'm able to be present with my son and connect with him when I'm here. I'm able to be present with my partner and let him really process some things and be soft and gentle with him as he's navigating something he never thought he would ever have to navigate. I'm able to just be in the presence of all of it without having to escape into some form of pathology because I'm compounding the issue with the stories I create in my head. And I truly believe that there is a way to make the life that I want, even though I'm still discovering what I want and becoming a version of myself that I haven't met yet. And I'm finding that I do really like her, and I am discovering things that I probably wouldn't have. And that's what courageous living really looks like from the inside out. It's not fearless. It's not figuring out. It's not clean or linear or photogenic. Just showing up for the day you're actually in, even when it's not the day you planned for. The Italians have a saying, La dolce vita. It's called the sweet life, and it's not an escape from the hard parts. It's the insistence that the beautiful parts exist simultaneously, that you are allowed to taste the wine and feel the grief in the same city, in the same body, on the same day. That's not compartmentalization. That is integration. That's the beingness. It is, I think, a sophisticated emotional skill a human being can develop. I'm still developing it. I want you to know, like I said, I hope that I'm relaying to you that like this is something I'm discovering in real time. I'm not doing it perfectly. Of course, there's days where I've realized I'm caught up in a story in my head and I have to let it go and come back to what's happening right now so that I can just take it one day at a time. And I know that sounds a bit cliche, one day at a time, but I mean it literally, not as a philosophy, but as a practice. Today, this one, what does today ask of me? What do I need to be present for? Most days, the answer, let yourself feel what is. Let yourself explore if you're feeling a little more energy or not. If you need to stay in and cry, do that. If you're holding something hard right now, something that doesn't fit neatly into a category, something that's both painful and maybe there's some beauty to it at the same time, I hope this episode gave you a little more permission to let yourself be both. You don't have to resolve the tension. You just have to live in it and be honest with yourself inside of it. And that's courageous living. Thank you guys for being here. Share this episode with somebody who needs to hear it, who's going through something hard. I have resources in the show notes. I've got a booklet, Finally at Peace, that can be really helpful for you. I have tons of stuff on my past YouTube channels. I also have a Substack that I write in regularly. And I would love to connect with you there. I have a course that's available on resetting your nervous system if that's something that you're interested in. I also have a program that like a 90-day journey where I really dig in and do some one-on-one work with you to help you get to a place where you can just be present. It's a combination of one-on-one time with me and a course where we really get into navigating getting out of your head and living authentically in your life. All right, I'll see you in the next episode.